How I found out about Lord RayEl was kind of odd. I had been doing some ancestral research, or had been provided, I suppose, some results to some ancestral research, and we had a lot of Templars in our bloodline, an unusual amount of Templars in our bloodline. And so, of course, I developed a huge fascination in wanting to learn more about them. And in the process of doing that, I had been reviewing some websites that Templars, had formed their own associations or lodges and such. And I was asking them a lot of questions. Coincidentally, our Archbishop Daniel Hunt was either in the group or he was visiting the group, and he had referred me over to the congregation of Lord RayEl, had informed me that the Messiah had returned. So naturally, I was, intrigued, but kind of concerned at the same time. I said, well, you want to be careful, what they say about, watching out for false messiahs and so on and so forth. So I was very reluctant, but I was interested at the same time. I did check it out, and in all honesty, it took me a lot of time because I was so fearful at the time. I have learned since then that fear actually gets in the way of your knowledge and intellect and actually fair judgment of others. So I had taken about 4 months to review everything carefully. I had this really uneasy feeling inside of me because, I knew that not everything I had learned, but a vast majority of what I had been made to believe by others who, to be quite honest, probably didn't take the time to look into like I did or our peers did. But it was uneasy just knowing that there had been like a form of brainwash or just something that was totally wrong. You grew up thinking one way and finding out, the majority of it was another way. So I had to deal with that. At first I was like, is this Satan making me feel like, uneasy to where, it's like a test and I'm going to reject this knowledge and just go along with the same old ignorant, comfortable path that I was taking because I didn't know anything else. I didn't want anything else because it wasn't what I knew, because it wasn't comfortable. And that's where I almost headed, but I started praying about it. Why am I feeling this way? Really, truly, why am I? All they're doing is giving me knowledge, and I'm finding nothing but facts to back it all up. So naturally, it was something that I didn't want to forgo learning about. So I continued my research. At that time, I was going about it slowly because I didn't have a full grasp of the world events that were taking place and how quickly it was all about to change. That we are literally in the end of days right now. And then I began to see even more signs after that point on. But that, I cannot stress how important it is to take the knowledge that's given to you. Do not take it at face value like a book or like the way a person sounds or the person looks. You really have to, pay attention to the fruit of their work and what they're literally saying to you. You really have to scratch below the surface and seek to understand. So that's how I truly began to see him. You've got to get past everything you've ever known. And then you understand that it's actually coming from the light. Just because you're uneasy doesn't mean it's from the dark. Okay, it means you're scared because it's not familiar. There were events that I talked about in my first testimony where after I had discovered about Lord RayEl that he did save my life. But prior to discovering who he was and of his return within this world, I did have life-saving events in my life that couldn't have been explained other than I was being saved for another point in my life, for another purpose. because I should not have been alive. My truck, I was driving a small truck on an icy road, and I went over an overpass one night, and this was in mid-sized town, Texas. And what happened was there was a huge semi that was passing me while I was on the highway, and because of the icy conditions and winds, when it passed me, it spun the truck around in circles, and I went over the overpass of the highway. It was a miracle that I was alive. There was another passenger with me. Her name was Sandra. I'll leave her last name out for now, just in case she doesn't want it included. And she too lived through this. We went to the hospital to make sure we didn't have any broken bones or anything like that, internal bleeding. But there were people that kind of rescued us from the site to get us, loaded and taken to the hospital. But it made the news, and a lot of people came up to me for a month straight, just like totally in shock that we were alive, because they saw the truck. The cab was totally crushed in. It was caved in. And the only remnant there was that possibly anything could have happened was there was blood everywhere, but we don't know where it came from. We talked about this extensively, and there was no internal bleeding, there was no fractures, no scratches, just a lot of soreness the next day and a couple weeks thereafter, but it was almost as if there was a wound that opened and closed. That's the best way I can describe it. But it was an eye-opener to me back then that, there was a purpose. I just did not know what that purpose was at the time. And I was prophesied over in a church. It was a interdenominational church that I would help serve God in the front armies of God. No, not anything sinister. I know when people hear the word army, they automatically think of some kind of zealot type thing, and it's not intended that way. It's just like spiritual warrior in a sense. So at that time it scared me because I had other plans. I had planned on being a fashion designer, and it's kind of a materialistic path that I was taking. I did not want to go the path that my family wanted me to go in. They wanted me to go to Oral Roberts University and be a missionary, because I had pretty much had my eye upon God most of my life and the Lord's way. But when I reached that age of 18 and getting ready to bolt out of the house, the last thing my mind was on was serving God. I had found myself changing into a person that I probably look back on and I wouldn't respect. But I realize now that as they told me then that I was meant to travel both paths, so that I can learn how to see through the eyes of others, so that I could mature, so that I can make the proper choices and be stronger for a time that will come later in my life. They foretold this over me before I even took that path. I resisted the knowledge, and I ended up rebelling, which took me down that path. For quite a few years, actually, and then I came back to it. But I'm very thankful of the many times that He has saved my life, and that's just one of the many prior to me discovering Him. And I'll discuss those others probably another time.